All right, welcome to today's recap. It is Monday, the 11th, and wow, what a nice day! What a nice recovery. We were just talking about this in the trading room today. You know, pretty much, after the fact, things always look like, it's obvious, right? I mean, but the fact is, we got pretty lucky with the hurricane. From what they were originally predicting, and there's always more hype. It always seems like there's more bark than there is bite with these things. But it is what it is. I'm not in Florida, so I remember when Sandy hit, it was pretty ugly, and it was pretty ugly for a while. So hopefully things get cleaned up there relatively quickly. But yeah, I mean, I think the market was pricing in a little bit too much risk. We saw that with the Qs on Friday. The Qs really got slammed. There was a major amount of selling that was happening, and you can kind of see that. I'll bring up the Qs chart in a second, but things look like they were got a little bit too far to one end in terms of what the market was expecting. And also there's still over our head is North Korea. We don't know what's going to happen with that, but there was no missile testing or no bottle rockets that went off this weekend, which also, so it was kind of, I don't want to say a perfect weekend because we know what happened with the hurricane, but in terms of expectations, I think things were pretty good. And we see a relief rally happening in the market. So, just to kind of sum up the S&P chart, I mean, we basically had nothing but chop. I know I was making some jokes last week about S&P. I know a lot of people look at the S&P and they're like, oh, this thing's not moving. There was a lot of, to use the hurricane, sorry for the pun, but there's a lot of cross currents in sectors last week. There were some sectors that were really moving up and some that were really moving down. So, I think if you just look at the indices alone and don't look at what's going on underneath the hood, you're kind of missing some of these moves. Last week it was healthcare, so healthcare just went bananas last week in the healthcare names. So here's what I was talking about with Nasdaq. I mean, it doesn't even look like that big of a candle, but from what we're used to, it just was a steady grind all day Friday. And then today, a move up. I mean, we kind of saw this right when we got in this morning. Asia was up big. I mean, so finally we kind of equaled out what overseas was doing. I mean, they've been outperforming us, basically for the whole year. But the Hang Seng was up over 1% last night, and then Europe was up decently. The DAX was up over one. Actually didn't see where the DAX closed today. I think it was pretty decently over 1%. Yeah, it was up 1.4%. The Euro stocks were up 1.4%. So yeah, we had a good day, but we're still, underperforming, trailing quite a bit the rest of the world. You could see the Nikkei was up 1.4%, Hang Seng up 1%. And again, if you look at year to date and where these things are, the Hang Seng is up 26%. What's the S&P up 11%? So, we're still kind of in that underperformance. And I know I stress this a lot. I stress international markets a lot because the financial media, if you're watching, again, I'm not trying to beat up the television show channels, but they just don't cover international, what's going on globally versus what's going on in the U.S. So, that's really the mindset, I think, is that the U.S. is really underperforming the rest of the world, but still. A really nice day for the indices, up 1%. Glad to see these get going. And, let's see, did we hit a 52-week high? Let's see. I think we did today, right? So, close. That was a 52-week high last week in Nasdaq futures. The Qs, yeah, just shy of it. S&P, I think the same thing, just shy of that, but a really nice looking bar. This was a little bit troubling. And as I shot the morning's video, even like we were having trouble getting over the value area, but nice clear and nice close. We kind of held the gains through the end of the day. So we'll talk about some individual areas. Well, it was the banks that snapped back today. This was the trouble area last week. Still underneath the 200-day moving average, which is this big white line that's going across my chart here. So still in a little bit of a pain, but it still may be a good short candidate. I want to see what happens. I'm actually short K. I got short KRE last week, so kind of just sat through a little bit of pain with this one. but I want to see what's going to happen. I'll give it another day to see if I either take this trade off or maybe I add to it because it does look like it's weak to me, but nice snapback the last 2 days. Same thing with the insurers, which really got smoked. They gapped all the way back above the 200-day moving average really quick. So they did not close in a value, but still, from where this was Thursday and Friday, they really got smoked last week. And then so that kind of makes sense, these names coming back. But then you look at the real strength in this market, and where is it? It's it's in Chinese internet names. So look at this, 52-week high again. And it's just crossing over. The MACD is just crossing over here. So you can see market breadth before I take it away was very strong across the board, by the way. But just take this indicator off so we could see more of the charts. But I mentioned it this morning in this morning's video. I said watch these China internet names. The Hang Seng was up strong last night, so nice follow through. I mean, the whole group up 2%. So again, I mentioned this in the weekend note, the newsletter that I send out on the weekends. I said, while we remain in a choppy market, the areas that I stay concentrated in and look for opportunities: emerging markets, China internets, robotics, healthcare, software, banks, to name a few. Banks to the downside, but they're like what I already went over. They snap back nicely. So take a look at a couple of those other names. Robotics. I mean, there hasn't been any weakness with this thing. It barely gets, every time it gets to the 50-day moving average, it bounces like a damn trampoline. Here, and even here we didn't even get there. But I mean, look at how strong this is. Again, this is Robo. This is the robotics ETF. There's two in this space. There's bots as well. I mean, they're both doing the same thing. Take your pick. Own either one of them, and just absolutely phenomenal. And it, there's not much else you could really say there. This is the lithium ETF. So this does not have an underlying metal to it. It's actually, it's a basket of equity names. And to me, it's always, when you see something like this, this is your FMC and your SQM, Tesla's in here as well, ALB. But when you see something like this, like a group of stocks that are going parabolic, I mean, it just shows not just one stock, but a whole group of stocks that are doing this. So, man, there continues to be really defined pockets of strength. The semis woke up today. SMH, which has just kind of been, pretty choppy for the last couple months, but showing some signs of life here. I've got a downward trend line. It's got up there last week and then just kind of fizzled a little bit. So we're basically back to last week's high, just like in NASDAQ and S&P. So, if you've been just kind of sitting on your hands and adding into a little bit of weakness, today was pretty good for you, I would imagine. What else is on my list to talk about? Material names were pretty hot today as well. XLB, which showed some signs of life about a week ago. Also, this is good. I mean, this back to 52 weeks high. It's amazing what one day can do. And sometimes we saw that, or a couple days last week, we were really strong. But just one day, the whole picture changes. Again, if you kind of look at this objectively, we never broke into the value area. We had all these hammer bars right on the top of 54.73, but bam, so there's a couple different names I could talk about, with pockets of strength. Procter and Gamble, which we've been seeing call buying, this thing took off today. I'm no longer in this, so the rails were really strong today. So there's other, smaller groups that were really strong. NSC, which I actually just got out of a trade last week. I was just taking some money off the table, but NSC, 52-week high after we saw some big call buying about a month ago. So I think I got into this trade right around the 200-day moving average. I didn't know if it was going to be able to. I thought there was resistance, and I thought it might. I thought it was kind of stalling out here, but I guess I read it wrong, which is fine. It was a nice profitable trade, not train. KSU. Take a look at this name. This is not a name that I'm in. I've been watching it for a little while because it's been weak, but almost crossing over here to a 52-week not to a 52-week high, but to an MACD crossover. So if you're looking for a name in the rail space, pretty good. Since I'm looking at the transports, what a move by the airlines today. So they've been depressed for a while, even before hurricane season. AAL very strong today. Delta almost looks like they're kind of putting in a W pattern. We'll see. We got to get above the 200-day moving average for a couple of these. They kind of look the same. I think there was some LUV calls as well today, but they still have some more work to do. I want to see if that W pattern kind of works its way through. So that was really where we saw the strength today. I feel like there was one other group that I wanted to talk about. I guess tech and IGV, which has been showing strength for weeks now. This is tech and software. I've mentioned this if you've seen my videos before. I've mentioned this ETF before. IGV, so much different than XLK. Like XLK is the biggest weight is Apple. You could see, XLK looks fine, but really where the strength is in tech is in your kind of second tier names, second level names, I would say maybe. Not your Google and your Facebook, or Apple, but Oracle, Adobe, Salesforce, Microsoft, ATBI, EA. So again, this is the IGV, real nice ETF to track. ServiceNow is also in here. So so just to kind of talk about what I did today, Baba was a nice winner for me. I got into a trade on Friday and kind of got stuck in it. And it just didn't. I've liked the chart in Baba. I was kind of waiting for a pop in it, so I held on to some calls, some weekly calls, and rang the register today with Alibaba. So got again. I'll chalk it up to being a little bit lucky, but I like the chart. After a couple of days of consolidation, it looks like it wants more, and we've just been seeing continuous call buying in this name. Shop was a nice winner for me today. This was a name that I got long around earnings. I had to restructure it, but this thing has been up and away. What else did I do just to kind of look at some trades? PayPal, both PayPal and Square. I've been sitting in PayPal and Square for a couple months now. Those really paid off today. So real nice move here. PayPal 52-week high, and Square finally got out of this little range. You just have to, some of the stuff. It is tough. It's tough to be patient, but some of the stuff that really didn't break. I mean, it got pretty close to breaking below the 50-day moving average. I think it did it once, and it popped right back above. But real nice move in this Square today. So almost back to the 52-week high. And if you've been adding in this type of stuff, you've done well, as I said earlier. What else? I could talk about a couple of the trades that we saw today. Applied Materials, nice call buyer. It does have a VPOC ahead of it. Oh, Tesla was another one for me today. So Tesla, I sent out a video about a week. I think it was about a week and a half on Tesla, starting to work. So I took a little bit off of this because I've been underwater in this trade. Put this trade on somewhere in here. I think on this first green candle. So it's just been chopping around here. And the nice move today, I added to it a couple times. I took the ads off, so I remain long my initial position. This is the call spread that I've got on these two lines, but real nice move in that one today. What else did before I go on to today's option activity? I thought there was NCLH, which this one we played pretty nicely in the room. We took this off right in the beginning of the day, right around that 58.18. So again, using valuers, I gave a webinar on valuaries last week. We got right to the resistance, and that's basically I took it off all on here. This was a trade that we saw last week. I think it was Wednesday. I bought it. I hit one target. I took the trade off on Thursday for a little bit lower than my cost basis, and then I re-added it on Friday for 60 cents. And these were the October calls, and took them off for $1. So real nice winner in this one, and I'm out of that trade, which it looks like it sold off towards the end of the day, or kind of gave back that initial pop. It just gave back that initial pop, but this was really nice today. I'm thankful for the beginning of the day and the nice bounce that we got. The overall move, I would say today. So today's option activity, Snap. I'll start there. I did put on a Snap trade. I've actually never traded Snap. This is the first time I've traded it. The reason why I did, this is not a name that I really have liked at all. Hence, I haven't traded it yet. But Friday there was 35,000 of the. Again, I don't know what they're doing. There is a small conference that Snap is presenting at, but I don't know if it's going to be the catalyst of why somebody bought 35,000 of these on Friday. And then today they did the same thing. So this was Friday's flow, and then this was today. Different strike. They did the Friday was the 16 strikes. Today was the 15 and a half, so 52,000. So I don't know if they got rid of those, but it did make a nice move. This is where they bought those. So I bought stock and I bought options, and I took a target in the options. I'm still holding the cash, but again, very short dated, only for a week that they're holding these. So that was probably one of the morning's most interesting names. Some VRX calls. By the way, VRX is back above, unless it closed, but yeah, back above the 200-day moving average. So if you're looking for trades that just kind of poke their head away above the 200-day moving average, VRX is back above. Another name, Twitter, which I got long today in the cash trend portfolio. This is now above the 50 and the 100-day moving average and the 200-day moving average. So I call these easy trades because we know exactly where it's not going to work. So my stop will be the 200-day moving average or just below it for Twitter. But I've tried this before. It worked really well. I took half off before earnings and then got beaten up on the last half. So this is the first time I'm re-entering since that earnings move. A few other really interesting trades, kind of the end of the day. There's Baba, of course, which I already mentioned. BHP. This is what iron ore name. They tattooed the weekly calls in this. Again, I don't know why they're so interested in the weekly calls, but the 14,000 of them on the tape versus there's no open interest on this trade. So I don't know. Maybe somebody's expecting some more upside here in BHP in the short term. So I went ahead and I bought the Octobers. I don't want that September stuff, the weekly stuff. That's to me, you're playing. You're betting on football, I guess. I don't know, for the weekly stuff, or if you're okay with losing the whole amount if it doesn't work. But so I went out to October. I gave it a little bit more time. I actually took some of the trade off at the end of the day because I really don't like to hold such a lot of short term. So I tried playing it for a day trade. Hit one small target with it. We saw the calls go up right in here when they initially started going. So keep in mind, they were not bought here, as everybody on Twitter likes to say. Oh yeah, it's up. They bought. Look at all the BHP calls. Well, they were bought here and here and here and here. So there wasn't really that much to be made on there wasn't really much to be made on a day trade. But I love the guys on Twitter when they tend to talk about stuff. They don't really put things into frame. Splunk, there was a nice roll of calls, and it looks like they may have added to it. This is a name that's done pretty well, especially did real nice on earnings and has had some nice follow through. So it's kind of at an interesting point, this Splunk. We'll see if it can get out of this range. But you could see September's look like they were sold, and they rolled out to the 75 calls, which is always a good sign. And I think this name can get going. And then a couple tech names kind of came in at the end of the day. IGT, well, this is an international gaming name. Some IDTI calls were bought aggressively, weeklies. The IGT I like a little bit better, but they're far. I think you need about a 10% move to get up to the strike for October. So those were just bought for like 30 cents. I did take a small position in IGT. I really don't like to put on a lot of risk when we're up so much, on these big up days, but there's a couple tempting trades. And then another one, I would say put this in the sneaky category, JBL. Looks like they got up to, let's see, right at the end of the day. I think this was at the end of the day. There was no prints. I think they kind of did these, a little bit around the 2 o'clock time, also around the 11 o'clock time. No prints really over 500. So apparently they were trying to fly underneath the radar. December 31 calls. Keep an eye on that. It's right at the money. Somebody's looking for this name to kind of punch out here. It's had a nice run from 17 to 31, but it's been consolidating. So maybe it's ready to take that next leg higher. JBL December 31 calls. So I'll leave it there. Really, really nice day. I don't think it's a bad place here to also sell a little bit of premium. It's index premium. We've been kind of doing these 1 or 2 day gains. If we go back to the S&P, kind of give you my market look for the next week or so. We've had a couple strong days and then we consolidate. So, if we get another strong day behind us tomorrow, maybe that would be a good day to kind of sell some out of the money index call spreads, and try to earn a little bit of premium if we shop around here rather than buy puts in this market. So just another way to think about things. All right, thanks for watching today's video. Have a great night, and I'll see you back in the trading room bright and early tomorrow morning. Thanks.